Okay. My sincere greetings to everyone. And with this greeting, we'll start this class. And as always, we start with setting the right motivation. And here, the right motivation with the refuge and bodhicitta. As a follower of the teachings of the Buddha, having refuge, the mind taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And many of us follow within the Buddha's teachings. We follow Bodhisattva and the teachings, Maya and the teachings, and in that case, bodhicitta, the altruistic awakened mind, is very, very important to have. And I will not go any detail on these two, how to hold these two mental states as our main motivation to join this gathering. It is equally important, try to have these two minds forefront of our everyday in our lives. In the morning, when we woke up, during the day, in the afternoon, before going to bed, as many times as possible, really, to bring these two minds in our mental continuum and try to perfume or try to, try to, spread these two minds in our other mental states, whatever routine activities that we do. Thought of making a cup of tea, thought of wanting to reply the email, and also our actions, physical actions, the verbal actions, try as much as we can, have the influence of these two minds. When we talk about motivation, sometimes we think it is only at the beginning, at the starting, and after we started the actual event, then we think we may not need that. That's not the case. It is at the beginning, during the action, and at the end. Try to bring these two minds as strong as possible, as clear as possible. And, over the coming, I'm sure many of you are long-term practitioners. I know you do this, but, over the coming days, weeks, months, years, decades, consolidate, make strong these two minds, and make these two minds very much, part of our everyday way of thinking, way of acting. And that is very, very useful, very, very useful. If our mind, our mental state, our, the verbal actions, our physical activities are, led by with these two minds, then it is quite sure, at least intentionally, we will not do, harmful actions to ourselves and to others, immediately and long term. because these two, the mind taking refuge. When we take refuge to the Buddha as a historical Buddha, or Buddhas, those good, great teachers, when we take refuge in those great teachers, the Buddha or Buddhas, as our mentor, as our teachers, when that mind is in here, then we will not do something unwholesome, unhelpful to ourselves and to others. Some of you may remember, maybe 10, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, when there was, disharmony in Sri Lanka. Many Buddhist monks turned into, very forcefully going to other communities. And one time I was with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama in Europe. And he was asked several times in different occasions, this question, why these Buddhist monks are very, forceful, very, leading this kind of unfortunate situation. What would be the method? And His Holiness says, if they imagine the historical Buddha in their mind, then they will not do this. They will not do this. He, the 2 or 3 occasions during that his visit to that time, he visited several different countries, and that question was asked several times, and his answer was the same. He said, if those monks recollect the Buddha's face, then they will not do that. And that was very, very practical upon that time. It was very, very practical and experiential answer. So therefore, taking refuge in Buddha. When we take refuge in Dharma, the teaching. And teachings, not only the oral teachings, but the main true Dharma. The main Dharma are the 3, in summary, are those 3 trainings: ethics, wisdom, and concentration. If these 3 are present within ourselves, in our everyday life, then we will not do, because ethic is there, wisdom is there, concentration is there. Then there isn't that much room. Our mind, think in some distorted mental states. And the same when we take refuge in Sangha. Those Sangha members are as our role model. The other days, I gave a talk to the monks in the debating courtyard in Sera Mey. Because, one of the fascination to coming back to this community where I was for nearly 20 years before I came to the West. Now coming back and really this 5.5 years, most of the time I'm here, I deliberately did this. And when I first came here, some of that time Sera Mey administrators, they came to me several times saying, please go somewhere and raise money. And they thought I lived in the West for many years. So I know many rich Westerners. And so I can go there and ask money and come back. I said, no. I accept this job with a clear mind to stay here, not go to the West or somewhere to collect money. That is not my motivation. That's not my job. If monastery needs money, you are the administrators, you should do this. So I made this very, very clear right at the beginning. So nowadays, my ears are very calm. So that is, how, so that's not my main point. Sorry. My main point is this, every now and then, there are rituals, offering made by the monks themselves when they are taking certain stages, like a Geshe exam. When they finish Geshe, they have to make offerings, so on and so forth. And they come in front of His Holiness throne, and His Holiness throne is next, when I sit in there, is next to my, where the seat where I am sitting. And I can look at, they are passing towards His Holiness throne, and they what you call very what is the right word? Anyway, they have a very strong, yearning to have shoes. Young boys, they want to wear those footballers' shoes, trainers. And some of them are very, very expensive. Or a little bit elder ones are very expensive, those, shoes mainly in the West, or these days also can be bought in India, and so forth. So that the other day when I said, why you are very interested, wearing those trainers, and I said, because, you are watching lots of footballs, and those footballers are wearing those shoes. And so that is their role model. And they try to copy what they are wearing, and so on and so forth. And it is here, the taking refuge in Dharma, taking refuge in Sangha, we should, treat the Sangha members as our role model. That doesn't mean Sangha members only monks and nuns. That is traditionally the term Sangha is used. That is traditional usage of the term. So that's here important. Sorry, I'm sidetracked now. Take, try in coming weeks, months, years, decades, to make these 2 minds stronger, deeper, ever present in our mental states, while we are fully alert or when we are asleep. It is very, very helpful to have these 2 minds. So for that purpose, we always start, not just me, in the Buddhist tradition, always say the refuge lines, as well as, the bodhicitta. So we are going to start with refuge and bodhicitta recitation. Sanje cheva so sonam chanjo pato tan dage jenso dibe so dola penje sanje sanje chedan chodi chonam chanjo pato tani tato che dage jenso dibe sonam dola penje sanje sanje cheda tsodi chonam tanjo pado tane tato che Dāgī jīnsō jīvē tsōnāṃ dōlā pēnjē sāngē dōvārā. With the refuge and the bodhicitta mind as our main motivation to join this gathering. Now I will say, and also you can say the Charasic mantra, 6-syllable mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. While I say the mantra, we all hold very strongly and clearly from our heart loving kindness and great compassion. And this loving kindness and great compassion will express towards all living beings. And in particularly living beings, human beings who are going through very, very difficult times due to the natural disasters or man-made misfortunes such as war and so forth. And strongly imagine that our, expression, sharing this loving kindness and great compassion reach all those sentient beings. Oh. So yesterday I started my sharing with you on this subject, and quite after reflecting, after the class, reflecting on my what I've said, some of the points, then I felt, I may created, I may have created, very pessimistic scenario or situation, keep saying the self-grasping and so forth. And, so it is very, very important to have the right balance, to understand, to recognize, to realize all our positive things, what we have done in the past, and what we are doing now, and what we'll do in the future. It is important to recognize that, that we are not 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all the time doing some, wrong things. No, we are doing many right things, many good things. That is, that is also true. It is also important to recognize, the acknowledging those good fortune, good deeds, that we have done is very, very helpful for us to encourage, to continue, to do this. It is very clearly stated by, the Geshe in his short autobiography, his own short autobiography. In that, he didn't say where he was born. He didn't say anything, what kind of amazing, what you call the rainbows or flower, rains of flower rain. He didn't say all those things. He said how he started his spiritual journey in the first part, and what are the teachings, texts, particularly those great Indian masters' texts that he had studied thoroughly and very comprehensively, not selection. And the middle part, he said, try to put into practice. Shunglu Tamje Dambarsha. He says at the middle, in that autobiography, to see, to understand entire teachings of the Buddha, entire teachings of those great teachers as a instruction to practice them. Not this one, not that one, not in that kind of selection. It says pardu. Pardu means in the middle. Middle in the sense, initially he spent long time to study Dhamma. Although he, every now and then he went to retreat while he was studying and while he was teaching. But that is how he divided this short autobiography. And he says, Pardu Shunglu Tamje. Pardu means in the middle. Shunglu, that means all the teaching. Shunglu Tamje, Dambar Shar, appear, as an instruction, to his spiritual journey. And Taman Yinzen at the end, day and night, put into practice. And that's what he divided this short autobiography. I'm sure some of you know this. I think I read one or twice in Jamia. And in that autobiography, in the first part, there's what I'm saying here. Gela Jesu Yirang Chokto Song. He says, it is very, very helpful, very, very grateful, to recognize, to appreciate, those virtues created by the others. Khebar Rangi Munche Gyawala, in particularly, Khebar Rangi, Khebar means in particularly, virtues that, created by oneself. Munche Gyawala, Lomsen Chalwe, this second, the what you call the line is very important. Lomsem, I'm not going to go into detail, but in Tibetan, this term itself, lomba, it has even just saying that, it shows this, what in English, I think whether I've got this phrasal verb correctly or not, I don't know, popped up. Just that very, you have this very arrogant behavior. So popped up. Anyway, there's this phrasal verb. So, lomsem in Tibetan, this Tibetan term, it has that kind of, I'm the great, I'm the best. That is that kind of what you call the manner. When I say this word, lomsem, it immediately get that kind of image physically. Lomsem telwa means free from that kind of arrogant mind. Then gawa, rejoice. Lomsem teve gawa, cherjena, if you have a great rejoice. Lomsem teve gawa, cherjena, onje gawa kondo fellowship. This will help, to increase your virtues. And that is very, very nice, statement. So in this context, many of, all of us do virtuous things, wholesome things, and recognize, acknowledge, and rejoice, to have that kind of opportunity, to have that kind of chance. Not easy, to get that kind of facilities, that kind of conditions. Even oneself really wants to, there are lots of obstacles. But fortunately, many of us, that's not the case. And but without any negative pride, without an arrogant mind, rejoice, have a great joy. And this will help us to do same things again and again and again. That is the main reason, in the 7 limb practice, out of 7, that's the one, rejoicing virtues. That practice comes all the time, such as prostration and so forth. And rejoicing is one of them. And for me, psychologically, that rejoicing is within the 7 in practice is something amazing. Psychologically, it is very, very helpful if we sincerely, genuinely, without negative pride, if we are able to rejoice the virtues that we have done, then that rejoicing will lead us to do it again and again. When I was in UK, I love going for a walk, long walk. And some places, I've done many, many, many times, walk many times, because I like the place, and I enjoy that. And that's why I don't get any, burden, Instead, there is this kind of excitement to want to go to that place, have a long walk, because there's a joy. In the previous, there was a joy. And that is important. And also, some of you know this, in the meditation instruction, it is clearly stated, your meditation session should be ended before you get tired, before you get bored with your meditation. While you are enjoying your meditation session, everything is going well, then stop there, have the ability to stop there. And why? Psychologically, it will put in a very pleasant memory in here. And this pleasant memory will lead us to do again. But if we do meditation until we are completely exhausted, completely flat, then next time when we see the meditation cushion, we want to run away from that. So it is due to the pleasant memory, we want to go back. Very tiring, very difficult memory, that is the human nature. So that sort of things. Anyway, so important to acknowledge our own those virtues, wholesomes, and same time to have the ability to rejoice. So we are going to start reading our text. And so yesterday's our reading, our reading, just few important points to recap. I will not go any explanation. I will read from the text. In the first part, where Drom, who was the disciple, when he was asking a quite long, relatively long question, and in that middle of that question, Drom says this: covering all our own defects with our own paths, and that is important. And then he continues, we unearth all the weaknesses of others with our fingers. And that is very, very important statement, to reflect on whether we do this or not, and Or even if we don't do right now, do we have the potential to do this? And those are the things which I thought very, very interesting. And then it continues saying, students do not implement the teacher's words. And that's also quite helpful. I'm talking about myself. So then after these long questions, the Atisha said, no, first just clean out those, dry, those wet, our clothes, have a shorter one. So then, the Drom asked, in that case, what is the root of bondage? That is the main question. And the entire text is answering to that question, but approaching from different angles, different reasons. But the Atisha answers to that question: what is the root of bondage? Bondage in the sense, our this continuation of any without any control by ourselves, the continuation of birth, aging, sickness, and death, and in that context. And then the Atisha's brief answer was saying it is the grasping at self. So that is the main answer, very brief and very clear. The root or the main source of our, this conditioning existence, this, all these predicaments that we experiences is this self-grasping. And that is really something important to remember. Then here, Drom asked what is self-grasping. So Atisha gave two different, two answers from two different angles. The first answer was very much saying, from the practical, from the experiential point of view, what is self-grasping? And so the Atisha said, all those good things, all those, goodies want by myself, and all those misfortunes should go to others. That kind of attitude, that kind of manner is the sign of the self-grasping. And that is Atisha's practical, experiential answer. And another answer further, what Drom pushed further. What is that? Then another answer was, this is the reified self-grasping. So reified self-grasping, reified. People who don't have, the text and also don't understand my pronunciation, accent, then it is reified is spelled like this: R-E-I-F-I-E-D. Whether that causes more confusion, I don't know. So that is reified. So in Tibetan, I mentioned yesterday, dotak, something which is not there with the self, with the I, but added on, added on. That is here. So, but here still, not very clear what is added on, what is not there at the first place with the I, with the self, and we add it on, and that is what here we need to go. And then again, Drom push further. What is that reified self-grasping? Then again, the Atisha's, the answer was, why you are asking this, which is very obvious. Why you are asking this? It is very obvious. It is very pervasive to all sentient beings, if you look around, it is very obvious. This, self-grasping, how this self-grasping is, leading us or making us do things, and so on and so forth. That's what here the Atishas, And then next page in the people who have the books. So Atisha, there are people who possess such form of grasping. So then Atisha asks, this question: are there people, which is very what you call the obvious, very pervasive, but are there people who possess this self-grasping? And then and where do they exist? And this is what his name, Drom asked, and Atisha sort of responded, where do they exist? And so that is and there are within. So this is Drom's question answer. They are within our mental continuum. So today we are starting from there. Yesterday we covered up to there. Today we are starting from there. So if that is very obvious, self-grasping is very obvious, self-grasping is very pervasive, exists all living beings, all sentient beings, very obvious, then where it is? Where is it? Is it in the head? Is it outside? Or where is my self-grasping? If I have the self-grasping, where is it? And then here the Drom's response was, they are within our mental continuum. Self-grasping is not something outside. Self-grasping is within our mental continuum. So now here, at this stage, now I'm going to clarify an important point. Then later reading will become quite easy. Now here, when we read text in English as well as in Tibetan, self-grasping, this rarefied self-grasping, that is self-grasping. It is a mental state. It is a distorted mental state. When we say self-grasping, if we say the mind, or even if we don't say the self-grasping mind, even if we just use rarefied self-grasping, we are talking about a particular mental state, Now, this particular mental state, has an object. I'm not saying that object exists. That object is exists. I'm not saying that, but I'm just simply saying that rarefied self-grasping has an object. But this, when we use this term as an object in English, and even in Tibetan, it causes a little bit confusion, because it is in same in Tibetan. In English, when you say object, then we immediately think, oh, there's something, and that is not the case. In the philosophical explanation, object can be existing object of our mind can be existing object of our mind can be simply, created by our mind. Created in the sense, like a, what you call the, earlier, yesterday, which is not there, our mind added. The object can be like that. I'm talking about mind. I'm not talking about a valid mind. I'm talking about mind. I'm not talking about distorted mind. I'm not talking about undistorted mind. I'm just talking about mind. Object of the mind can be can be existent one, or can be pure, our imagination. Just our, not real, not exist there. So this word object, when I say the self-grasping, reified self-grasping as an object, when I use this term, don't think immediately some kind of, existing object. That is here, it is very important. Now, yesterday when we talked about reified self-grasping, and when I explained that the Tibetan, the term Dromtönpa, that feather added on the arrow, at the end of the arrow, which bird's feather is not there, it is added. So now here, this is important. I or self, I or self, or our identity, does exist. It is not saying I doesn't exist. It is not saying self doesn't exist. What is here, what we are saying, our mind added something on this existent self, on this existent I. Then we believe I or the self exists in that fashion, in that manner or fashion of what is added on by our mind. So here, at this stage, I'm really, talking about reified self-grasping itself and the object of reified self-grasping. I'm bringing two things. One does exist, which is reified self-grasping, because it does exist because it is a mind. It is a distorted mind. Yeah, it is a mind. It is a distorted mind. Just, listen. What I'm saying is reified self-grasping does exist. Okay? Because it is mind. It is a distorted mind. Like our, in the desert, which I never experienced, in the desert when we see the mirage. Our eye seeing the mirage does exist, but mirage does not exist. Similar to that, reified self-grasping does exist here within our mental continuum, as here they are within our mental continuum. Reified self-grasping is within our mental continuum. So later on, we will have some statement, sounds, it doesn't exist. That referring to the object of the reified self-grasping. The object of the reified self-grasping. Again, not the whole object of the reified self-grasping, but what is added on. What is added on? Our self, I, what is added on by our mind? That And so there are three stages, isn't it? So it is important to look at these three stages. The first stage is rarefied self-grasping, which cause all the troubles. Rarefied self-grasping causes all the trouble that exist. That's within our mental continuum. It doesn't exist outside. My rarefied self-grasping doesn't exist within you. My rarefied self-grasping exists within me, in my mental continuum. That's the one thing. Now, my rarefied self-grasping has an object because it is a mind. If it is mind, there must be an object. But whether object exists or not, that is the different stage. So rarefied self-grasping has an object, and the object is I or self. Okay? I or self. And what this rarefied self-grasping does, it's added on something on that object, which is I or the self. Is it clear? I hope it's clear now. So those are the three stages. So our reading the text and my explanation later going to come, there is this. Say this. When we, do analytical meditation, on emptiness, analytical meditation can be done on impermanence, nature of dukkha, in many other things. But when we do analytical meditation on emptiness, which will come later, what we should be analyzing. We should be analyzing this rarefied self-grasping, how this rarefied self-grasping perceive the I, in which manner, in which fashion this rarefied self-grasping perceiving I or the self. That is the analytical and, the function, particularly in the earliest stage of the function of the analytical meditation on emptiness. So in here, so to do that, then we need to look at those three stages, bear in our mind those three things. Rarefied self-grasping, its object, what is added on its object. Later on, we will see when we read the text, we will come across saying it doesn't exist. When we come the text saying it doesn't exist, it is not saying it doesn't exist, the rarefied self-grasping itself. It's not saying that doesn't exist the object of the rarefied self-grasping, the I. What it's saying is what is added on. What is added on the I or the self by the rarefied self-grasping. And that is what here very, very useful to get clear at this stage. So, so then when the question, the Atisha, this time Atisha asked question to his student, the Drom, where is this self-grasping? And the Drom said, it is within our mental continuum. And Atisha answer was saying this, Upasika, what is one's own mental continuum? So now that is, if we say yes, self-grasping exists. It exists within our mental continuum. What is this mental continuum? Atisha asked that. And then, this Upasaka, the Drom answer. It is that which wants everything and grasp at it all. So this is, I think, in Tibetan, it is nice. It is very nice in English, very clear. But in Tibetan, this expression is very common even in ordinary Tibetan community. It says this, migu, gugu. So migu, that means what we don't need. Migu. That me is the negative, gu is the saying need. Migu means that we don't need, which we don't need. Migu. Gu, need 9 things. So this expression is very interesting. Migu, in reality, we don't need these things and that things. But in reality, or in our practical level, in our habitual level, we collect everything. That is the things. It is very, very, the interesting expression, migu, gugu. Quite often, I remember this very, very clearly, from my late mom's, one of the favorite expression, because she had 9 children and under the refugee status. And, when having 9 children, although, I left my second sister was born, and then I left, I joined Monastery, so I didn't have that much time with others. But occasionally I go to visit them in 1970s and 80s when I was here. And, one of her private expression in front of those children, that is what she says, because their children will say, oh, I want this, mommy, I want that, mommy, I want this. And that is in Tibetan expression. In reality, you don't need this, but you want everything. Migu, gugu. And that's very nice expression. And that is, very, very, I want to share, I myself have done, but I want to share this one thing. When I was in the UK, one of TV program which I like to watch quite a lot in Channel 4, that was, I think, early 2000. There was a serial talking about, how much people are gathering kitchen stuffs, the what you call the juicer and all those things. And when you open the cupboard, kitchen cupboard, all are there. Some of them are even haven't opened the box. And that is here, migu, gugu. Don't need 3 or 4 the same things in reality, but we collect, isn't it? And that is here, this, what is one's, it is that which wants everything and the grasp at it all. That's how Jimba translated. But in Tibetan words, I like this very much, migu, gugu, and that give me very clear impression, the habit of our mind, habits of our mind. That's how I am, as I shared with you before in other times, when I moved here, I cleaned, clear my flat in South London. There are so many boxes. Not the books. There are many boxes of books. Some of them I never read, but I thought I may read and collect that. But also there are so many boxes of clothing, and so on and so forth. It was, very tiring at the end to pack and to select and to choose. And, then again, there is a tiring mind, have collected all these things. But that tiring mind, doesn't stop me to, keep many boxes, thinking it may come back useful in the future. That is here. And that is really something useful, helpful to remember. So that is what Drom's answer, replied Drom. And Atisha's reply was, it is very nice. I too would say the same. I will say the same. The where the self-grasping is in our mental continuum, it is the sign of we behave in this fashion. And that's very useful, to remember. And then, Drom asked, this time Drom asked question, where does this self-grasping reside? So now from here, then you need to remember the earlier what I've said. Reified self-grasping, its object, and what is added on its object. What is reified, what is added on its object. And that's really important from here. Where does this self-grasping reside? Inquired Drom. It is devoid of parts. It is devoid of parts. And I have never seen it myself. I've never seen it myself. It is devoid by, the parts. And Atisha says, I've never seen that. He's not saying, I've never seen the self-grasping itself. What he's saying is, what Atisha is saying is, I've never seen it. What is added, our minds added on the I, on the I. What is added on by our mind? What is added on I? That I never seen. Which is, he's saying devoid of parts. It is not saying the self-grasping. Those self-grasping, we can say the devoid of parts, and the parts in the sense material, the material things, because self-grasping is the mind. Therefore, we can say it is devoid of parts. But here, Atisha's answer is very much focusing on out of those three things, in this conversation: self-grasping, object of the self-grasping, what is added on the object of self-grasping. So these two, object of the self-grasping is I or self, and what is added on the object of self-grasping by the self-grasping. And here, answer is very much to the third one, not the self-grasping itself, not the object of the self-grasping, but what is added on the object of self-grasping. So Atisha's answer is saying, I've never seen it myself. There's nothing that abides where there's nowhere to abide. So this is interesting, I don't know, but in Tibetan, these three lines are in a, not in loose sentence. These three lines are in a, what you call the, in a verse line. It says, Dangzin di, koyan teke song, ona dangzin di, neba kangna, ne shube. where this self-grasping. And then, answer was, Chame kwe tong manyung. And that's the first one. Chame kwe tong manyung. I've never seen this partless thing. And that's what in Tibetan. Chame kone tong manyung. Neja mebe, neje mishe. If there's nothing to be abide, how can we say where it is abide? So then this is clearly refers to not the self-grasping, but it is referring to what is added on the object of the self-grasping. The object of the self-grasping is I or self. So now here, I have repeated maybe 8, 9, 10 times. Object of the self-grasping is I or self. Now you may think, Geshe Tashi is talking about I, sounds he's talking about I exist, self exist. You are thinking about that. You are right. Correct. I'm saying that. I'm not saying self doesn't exist. I'm not saying I doesn't exist. What I'm saying is what is added on the I or the self by the self-grasping, that doesn't exist. And that's what Atisha is saying, I've never seen it. And you can't talk about where it is abide because itself doesn't exist. And that is here important. So answer will come later. The clear answer will come later when I say I exist, self exists. Buddhism believes selflessness. How he can dare to say self exists? But the answer will come clear later. That is what the text is very nicely arranged. That abides where there's no way to abide. I do not know the color and the shape of something with no reality. So that, with no reality, that word is very important. When you say no reality, it means where it doesn't exist. Then how can I talk about color, shape, where it's abide, so on and so forth. And it is clearly talking about not the self-graspings. Self-grasping does exist. But therefore, it creates all the trouble. It exists, therefore, it is the root of the troubles. Do you remember earlier the first answer to the question, what is the root of bondage? Atisha said, it is the self-grasping. If self-grasping doesn't exist, how can you say it caused trouble? In debating courtyard, the boys age 15 in our monastery after age 15, they will join from the school to the debating courtyard. In first year, they will learn all the language, debating language, how to ask the question, how to put the answer all those things. And in the early stage, learning that language, debating language. And one of the earlier, what you call the subject is the color and the shapes. How many colors are there? How many shapes are there? Which color is which, and like that. And in that process, there is one very frequently come up, and as an example, which is called horn of rabbit. It seems in Indian culture, and through that Tibetan Buddhism, we believe there's no horn, on the rabbit. Rabbit doesn't have horn. Who knows? It might there. I don't know. But that is the so in this junction, in this stage, if self-grasping does not exist, then how self-grasping will cause such a trouble? Like if there's no horns on the head of rabbit, how can you say, I have this big worm, which, kicked by the horn, the rabbit's horn, which is not possible. So it is like that. So self-grasping does exist. What does not exist, what is exaggerated on the self by the self-grasping, that doesn't exist. If we manage to dismantle that, then self-grasping will disappear by itself. We don't need to do anything. When we start to dismantle this chain, self-grasping, its object I, on that object, self-grasping, added on extra qualities, extra characteristics on the self. If we're really able to dismantle that, then self-grasping will disappear. We don't need powerful, all those weapons. Don't need. It will, quite often, anyway. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Time is running out. So that is here. Atisha replied. Shapes of something with no reality. So no reality not refers to the self-grasping. People who have the books, when you read this part, no reality is not referring to the self-grasping. It is referring to what is added on the I by the self-grasping. That addition has no reality. Now, we need to understand what is added on by the self-grasping. That is now the point we need to search. And Drom then asks, if this is so, how can something so fearful exist? This is quite interesting. If there's no shade, there's no color, there's all these things, how can it make big trouble? If that's such as a weak, fearful, how can it make all this trouble? If there's have shapes, colors, forms, and so on and so forth. And that's what Dom's question. Atisha responded, cannot one perceive mirage water, a double moon, dream horses, and elephants, and so on? So now this is now moving to a nice, beautiful explanation, to think about, saying, yes, that when things are come together, something will occur. So in certain closer explanation to our subject, when self-grasping and I come together, there's another thing will occur, which is rareifying. Even though, which is the addition, believing, all those things. And that's what here the Atishas respond. Cannot one perceive mirage, water, though in the mirage there's no real water, but we perceive because conditions are met. And same, they're saying a double moon, and that might be the very, the Tibetan or Buddhist, the what's called the Indian, the culture. When you say double moon, if we squeeze our eyes and watch full moon, then we will see double or triple or even more. And that's what he's saying. And dream and horses, dream horses and elephants and so on. Then the next answer is, Master, these are delusion. So there's a nice debate going on. Though Dromtönpa has a great respect to his master Atisha, but he is saying, oh, of course, I know this. These are the delusion. Deluded mind, see anything. And so then here, Atisha said, I accept this is, I accept this to be so. So that is delusion. Therefore, it causes trouble. Our self-grasping is delusion. It causes trouble. That is very clear, how it deluded, then it deluded. Our self-grasping is deluded. Something which is not characteristic, which is not with the I, but our self-grasping belief, it exists. In that sense, it's deluded. In Tibetan, tulpa, deluded is tulpa. Tulpa, it has this different stages. It can be very simple. Tulpa, you miss, which happens very often to me, I understand the person who is in front of me. I thought he or she might be this one, but in reality, the other one. And that is the tulpa. That is tulpa. But that is what in English you may not call deluded. You may use delusion, slightly different stage. But in Tibetan, that tulpa is used in a very simple mistake to up to the self-grasping. What is used in here, deluded. So Atisha said, I accept this to be so. It is not that he here refers to the what you call the object, self-grasping, and in self-grasping, indulges in attachment and aversion on the basis of being existent. Now, this is now here getting a little bit clearer. What is added on by the self-grasping? What is added on by the self-grasping? And here the nice statement, saying self-grasping indulges in attachment and aversion. So now, in here, what Atisha is leading us into different stages, self-grasping, which, added on something on the self. That leads attachment and aversion. Attachment and aversion. So now, because we are running out of time, today I will say this, and many of you know this. You have heard many times from many great teachers. We have read many books on this. So what is added on our I or the self by the self-grasping? By the self-grasping. Self-grasping believes, or, when I say added on, believes or perceives the I or the self, the individual, has some kind of what you call the exist, or the some kind of manner from in and of itself as an I, as a self. Our self-grasping is reified self-grasping believes or perceives the I or the self, which is its object, exists in and of itself. That is that kind of characteristic is added. That kind of characteristic is exaggerated by the self-grasping. I'll repeat this again. Our self-grasping is reified self-grasping believes or perceives its object, the I or the self, exists in and of itself. Very much, standing by itself. And that believing in that manner, believing in that passion, perceiving in that passion is mistake, wrong. Like the long distance, under the circumstances of hot sun, with the in what you call the desert, perceiving water. So that is where the self-grasping is deluded. It is deluded because it believes the I or the self or the individual exists in and of itself, from its own right. That is so important to, I'm sure many of you know this, but it is important, you have heard from many great teachers, you have read many books, I'm sure many of you have contemplated, but don't leave it on the level of what I usually call assumption. In Tibetan, it is called anyway, it doesn't matter. Assumption. So assumption in the sense, that is how self-grasping, perceives the I or the self. Not leave it in that stage. You must search by yourself. That's important. If you search by yourself, whether your self-grasping perceive your I or the self in that passion or not, that is important. The other day we have what you call the seminar. And in the seminar, there were a group of monks, as talking about modern science. And there is a book I read several times. Can't remember who wrote that. It is deluded. Modern science is deluded. Delusion of modern science, or book itself was called something like that. I can't remember. Sorry?
Science Delusion.
Science Delusion by Rinpoche.
Yeah, so that book. And so there were lots of things happening. And one of the participants, it says, we are also, have the same, in the same sort of state, because we just believe. That's what the Buddha taught. That's what, my teacher said, and we just believe. Like similar to, people who believe, whatever scientists, those popular scientists say what it is. And we just believe. We haven't done our own analysis, lab test. We just believe, and he is famous, or she's famous. She's a very famous physicist. He is very famous, whatever, this and that, or said that. So I agree. And that is similar to that in Dharma. We are similar in our Dharma. We just believe, going in that belief. And that is mistake. We should try to go further than that, further than assumption. Okay? Oh, yeah. So I think we will, I thought we will have a question and answer. So now it's almost 4. So people who like to put a question and answer, if it is okay, Tree and Peter, it might be too much for work to you two. Otherwise, people can put some questions in written questions. Then you can send me. Then I will record the answer.
Yeah, that's fine with us.
Today we don't have enough time because I was just carry on my blah 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 too long. Then
so if they email us with the questions,
yeah.
we'll compile them and send them on to you. Is that right?
Yeah. Then I will answer, recorded answer. Then you can watch that one.
That's great. And when you email your questions, please email them in the way that is going to make it easy for us. And you can find our email address on the Foundations of Buddhist Thought website, foundationsofbuddhistthought.org.
Admin at Foundations of Buddhist Thought.
.org.
Okay.
And write them out as you would want to speak them
please.
Carefully.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we will do Dromtönpa prayers and then dedications. Oh, John. John, Bernard, and Cynthia. Om Je Pama Droma La Cha Se Chanze Droma Nyuma Chene Keje Lodanta Jige Songwe Chuge Che Kesa Chewa Lenin Ju Chanze Dongge Kawa Kawa Jenin Zebe She Kama Dongda Tsoba Lado Chewe Loramba Chanze Semu Chone Peme Chane Nabarake Jemba Tundu Kato She Soba Something to you Chanze Teishin Shebe Aye Nambara Jawa Chu Malu Paro Jimba Jave Sedi Shindu Chanze Doda Rahun Doda Choda Namba Jide Dombo Shakin Leba Meba Buba Chanze Diajin Mela Ta Nongla Nazo Wanju Chu Jombo Rana Tisan Nijun Sogi Yuni Chanze Deje Chadang Pe Paro Chubu Rago Yebon Yenjang Shatin Neba Choba Shindoba Chanze Turi Jibachi Digi Pao Nabarajo Chuje Shene Tony Tao Tamje Maluse Chanze Kunjo Somsen Seme Toka Nabarake Malu Choje Polo Ranje Eje Sonumutu Ranje Eje Sonumutu Chanze Rabdo Kawaji Ujin Eje Chengwabe Sheba Ramshe Dudar Dudan Jigden Wangdu Ze Chanze Sashi Dongwe So Tamje Buba Nima Chonye Yewa Yige Hongba Tamje Nambara Do Chanze Dawe Dongbu Yamba Tamje Shindo Bara Lebe Chene Raba Me Dabara Shindo Raba Tsen Chanze Gebe Tama Me Barwe Chengwe Wene Ye Jang Yung Kum Kune Ko Daye Kone Nambara Jo Chanze Sashi Ngola Cha Keji Mejing Shaki Kone Tonye Chenze Yege Rinpa Dumbo Namni Ge Chanze Dema Gema Shi Nyangin Deshin Ju Sowa Omda Yanda De Deba Chenpo Jomba Chanze Kune Koravaka Jaye Lune Nabarake Ige Jube Ngani Kwe Ripa Hune Tomo Chanze Dore Shami Honge Nambe Sabin Lera Menda Ratambe Jikten Sumna Yewan Chanze Hai Soyina Reda Tajen Chan Tara Niju Peje Duna Mali Bani Se Chanze Hai Sonum Ge Adam Nim Ji Den Gune Goja Gawan Ji Zeda Melamange Ba Se Chanze Nima Dawa Ji Jinye Bola Se Hara Niju Duda Shindo Chobe Rimne Se Chanze Tini Sumnam Shive Tudam Dedan Rola Nijin So Jomba Dore Rato Zawe Ngadi Beba Dida Chanze Wani Nishu Zang Ewa Di Diwo Sanama Yeshe Sozo Sanama Yeshe Lekum Tamba Kuni Toa Chanjo Sanjo Rinpoche Maje Panama Jeje Jeba Nyam Neba Kone Kondo Kare Rave Kone Senga Pendang Dewa Mani Chere Seo Tenzin Dato Shabe Sede Pato Tenjo. Oh yeah. Thank you. Thank you everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe.